welcome back. This is Luca Majno here with, yes, another version of Frank Gregory Ford. This is Global News Update on TLBTV, brought to you by the Liberty Beacon Project, where we give you complete, backstage, up-to-date info as to the developments occurring in our world today. And this is what we're doing again today. Welcome to the show, Greg.
Yes, thank you, Luca, as always. Good to be here.
Man, oh man, I never thought I'd get into this one. As we say on the program so many times, you have to follow the trail, the destructive path that these people in charge make, and they leave. As we, the people, and Mother Earth try and make sense of it all, we try to adapt and we try to survive, right? And the path continues. From what we cover every single time, if it's not the Bush crime family, which is involved in the first one of the two stories I'm going to mention, either the CIA or assassinations or coups d'etats or whatnot. Now we got the perpetual wars in the Middle East. How many, Greg, are we fighting on the ground now? 10, is it?
Yep. 10, and we're cultivating a couple more too. Right.
Well, here's yet another one that I'm seriously thinking of putting into Global News Update, the geoengineering segment or geoengineering minute on this show, even though it will last more than a minute this time. Because we're telling the truth on other subjects, because we need to spread the truth on stuff, and it has to be, as Greg says, it has to be, current and up to date. I'm adding geoengineering to the cause today because of what I saw yesterday. And again, we say to people, don't believe us, do your research. And funny thing, when you do your research long enough, you always come up to the same answers. Well, this here fits right in. It fits right in with Halliburton, with Iraq, with WMDs, with depleted uranium causing the Middle East to glow. Here's another twist, starting with the largest ocean dead zone ever recorded, which is unfolding right now, in the words of Dane Wigington from Geoengineeringwatch.org. Word for word, in the exact region where Harvey is meandering. All available data says that there's a growing sea of oil on the bottom of the Gulf of Mexico, much of it because of the BP oil well blowout. But a now deceased global expert on the subject says that it was never really sealed. The recognized global expert also stated that the seafloor around the well was fractured and thus leaking crude oil into the sea. And had it never been sealed, it could never be sealed. He went on to state that the illegal chemical Corexit was being used at the wellhead to keep the oil from servicing in order to not, make the public too aware of what was going on the ocean floor. Matt Simmons, who was this expert, was found dead after an interview, dead in his pool, several days after the interview, in which he made public disclosures that the powers that be obviously didn't want him to do. So there you go. I found another version of that story myself. And this part of the show is dedicated to him, his family, and his spirit. And also the other thing I wanted to address in Snapshot, in the Snapshot segment of this program, stories with pictures, right? This first one, well, I'm not really into coincidence types, nor do I do numbers, but most people that know me, they know that I come from a computer background, and I'm learning from every mistake that anyone could ever make on the computer while searching, especially satellite imagery, to the extent where some of my shots from photojournal.jpl.nasa.gov were simply blowing me away. They were different planets, 750 megabyte per shot, BMP image, which was unheard of at the time, zooming to the incredible detail. I was tracking storms. I was literally taking snapshots of the world every 15 minutes and splicing them together to make movies. So I got a chance to see how storms disperse naturally, how they move. And here comes two amazing images of Harvey. Well, here comes a few images of Harvey and a slam dunk article by geoengineeringwatch.org. None other than himself, Dane Wigington. And listen to what he says. Listen to what he shares. First from Richard D., a good friend of mine. The latest from geoengineeringwatch.org, Hurricane Harvey, a geoengineered disaster. Using government agencies' satellite footage, Dane Wigington shows how microwave blasts manipulated the flow of rain. Also, he questions, justifiably also, how meteorologists knew that the hurricane would act as it ultimately did. There's one master script out there, and those working for government agencies, they all read from it. And a lot of other people were muzzled and worse until now, the people that were the real whistleblowers to it. So with Hurricane Sandy, he says, meteorologists miraculously knew 7 days in advance that it would take this unprecedented 90-degree turn right when it did. According to him, Dane Wigington, quote, climate engineering has been with us a lethal force for the past 70 years. As Harvey was making landfall, he said, the radio frequency microwave transmissions being used by the weather makers to manipulate Harvey were undeniable. So how did the forecasters know that far in advance that Harvey would go park itself for days in the same area? Because the forecasters are reading a script. Scheduled weather given to them by geoengineering contractors like Raytheon and Lockheed Martin. And this is where it gets interesting. Raytheon does all the forecast mapping for the National Weather Service and NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Lockheed Martin does the same type of modeling for the FAA. So we got the foxes running the henhouse, as he says. Private defense contractors doing all the modeling for government agencies. The forecast track and behavior for Harvey was beyond unprecedented, he adds. Again, how could the forecasters know so far in advance? Because Harvey's behavior was not an act of nature. It was a manipulation with patented climate engineering technologies. The bizarre track of Hurricane Harvey is glaring as far as the red flag goes, to signal climate engineering, weather engineering operations. So what's this illegal federal gag order that was put on all weather service employees? Have you heard about that, Greg?
No, I haven't.
Very quickly, it's an illegal federal gag order put on all weather service employees. See, this is what I mean. One quick look at something else that's, that's not on our show. Another quick look over here. We're jumping around from one rabbit hole to the next. How deep does this one go? Geoengineering programs and processes are completely derailing all of Earth's climate and life support systems. I got to say that again. Geoengineering programs and processes are completely derailing all of Earth's climate and life support systems. So imagine that, the derailing of all life support systems on Earth available to Mother Earth, and almost nobody knows about it. And then you hear of Rothschild intervention. Oh, okay, but for now, Harvey's provided a convenient distraction from the planetary meltdown that's unfolding. And look at what we mean by unfolding, okay? The images of cloud seeding. Look at the underlined and circled parts in these images. Shown as negatives, to be better read, I thought. Underlined areas, quote, to help initiate shower and storms, unquote, giving the counties and the state referred to by this memo as well, provided a small window for seeding opportunity, fired 2 doses of glaciogenic flares. Look at the date. 1 dosage of seeding took place. Seeding operations, 6 flares burned within 2 clouds. This is a whole different type of language that hardly anybody has seen before, and they're all in Texas, and that's my purpose for sharing that. Also, why would Rothschilds be so interested in owning the largest and most recognized weather modeling organization out there, right? Why would E.L. Rothschild LLC wish to have the controlling interest in the world's largest leading provider of interactive weather graphics and data services for television, web, and mobile? So it gets worse and worse and worse as we go on. And, it's all happening in plain sight, and almost nobody can connect the dots, according to Dane Wigington again. So with the Rothschilds' acquisition of the dominant private modeling organization controlling the weather modeling, it goes on and on. The systems are going to be modeled forever and ever. It's a control of forecasts and graphics that provide for the constant visual conditioning for the people that makes everybody more likely to accept the constant spraying and manipulation of our weather as normal. So, Greg, that's that's a big part of what I wanted to say, and I find it really important. All we have to do is look at all the overall damage, you know, in the world. The clear cutting of the forests, paving of huge areas, poisoning the oceans, putting 100 million tons of CO2 into the atmosphere every day. This is part of it. It's another big part of the wheel. Greg?
Well, I agree, and especially in the light of the fact that Brazil now has authorized the destruction of 17,000 more acres to mine, open to mining. And of course, the greatest CO2 sink on the globe is the Amazon jungle. Okay, so you know, and keep in mind, you know, that the U.S. government, when I pointed out that there was torture going on an industrial scale in Iraq and Syria, okay, guess what? They said, "Oh no, I'm crazy, mad as a hatter." So, folks, listen, okay? Don't believe me, because the U.S. government, and you know they had never say anything without it being well researched and absolutely truthful, would never say anything, especially about somebody that was fighting terrorism, okay, like I was, that it would have to be the absolute truth, okay? So that's the way the government is looking at it, and they figure 40% of you are idiots, are absolute morons, who will watch TV and believe anything you say, you see and say, okay? So here's the deal. My take on this is that in the Gulf, they just had one of the biggest, greatest ecological disasters in the whole world, okay, the world has ever seen. The BP platform blowout, okay? And that contributed already to a huge dead spot, the largest dead spot in the oceans of all the worlds, okay? This dead spot was growing just about the same place where the platform blew out, okay? So there's something called water surface tension. And when you change that, that changes the mist pressure, vapor pressure that is released off of the large body of water. So if you have a dead body of water, are you going to get the same interaction with the atmosphere as you are with a live body of water? No. And if you hadn't noticed recently, Mr. Trump, that great ecologically concerned politician that we voted in not too long ago, he has destroyed, completely closed the doors on the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency. Hence, we've had a huge disaster in the Gulf, and what better way to cover this up than to park a massive hurricane, okay, track the hurricane, park that hurricane right on top of the land surface that adjoins that great, you know, the great dead spot, and flood it, which would cause all kinds of issues, silts, pollutions, oils, everything else, to where you could say, see, there's no more dead spot. The whole Gulf is dead because of this hurricane.
Right.
Uh-oh, an act of God. That's what I love about these folks, an act of God, okay? Gee, imagine that, an act of God, brought to you by the greatest spy corporation the world has ever seen, the Rothschild Bank, okay? CIA, KGB, they're all wannabes, okay, folks? The greatest spy corporation in the world is the Rothschilds, all right? So, of course, the Rothschilds have always been number one in anticipating transportation needs, food needs, geoengineering needs, all right? Espionage needs, banking needs, okay? Because they can afford to hire the best brains in the whole world to figure all this out, okay? So,
Oh,
by the way, I'm confused. Luca. Did you say Harvey or Harp? Which did you say?
yeah, really. I have to throw this in, Greg. This is very important also. I just showed this image, but we went over it too quickly, so the people probably didn't catch it. But the image says, are BP and the Obama administration involved in a massive cover-up that resulted in the assassination of Bush energy advisor Matthew Simmons?
Well, you can add another name to that. By the way, while we're here talking about all of this,
Mm-hmm.
do you think, Luca, that HARP could have been synonymous with tsunami that struck Japan?
Right.
Okay, and has changed the oceans in the North Pacific. All right, a few yards from where I'm sitting right now, the area has been completely changed. All right, you can't find a single starfish in California anymore. Okay, so I'm suspicious now of HARP, just like I am of Harvey. Okay,
Right.
who thinks of this stuff? Okay, so I think we should be consulting with the Japanese on this, and we should be looking at the North Pacific, and all the gyres. Okay, and I think we should be looking at this great dead spot, which now conveniently seems to have had the Great Flush put to it. Okay, the Great Flush, full of everything polluted and man-made you can think of, is headed into the Gulf right now, and the EPA no longer exists, so there's nobody to check on what we're saying here.
Right.
Very convenient. And by the way, I was up late last night watching something on JFK Jr. All right, the son that everyone knows in America who saluted his father's murder and assassination. Okay. Well, he was murdered too. I have come to the conclusion, after watching the radar tracings and trackings of his airplane, that yes, he was killed too. Okay.
Can you say Hillary? Can you say Hillary Clinton's seat that she wanted?
Oh,
Sorry.
Yes, Hillary. But funny thing was, nope, they did not mention the fact that JFK Jr. had the GEMS file. Okay, the GEM file. All right, he was going to release the GEM file through his magazine, George. Okay, well, yes, funny how that works, George. That name keeps popping up all through history since World War II. There's George H.W. Bush, and then there was George, who gave us great disaster, added a whole new meaning to treason. Okay, yes, that Bush family, and then there was George W. Bush, who brought us the never-ending terrorist attack. Funny thing, he and Dick Cheney again. All right, and who I am recommending and officially recommending that we have a U.S. government investigation. Ask anybody, ask any of the citizens of the United States. Okay, unless it's us against them, unless the United States government has taken on an independent air, okay, independent of governance of the United States people, they are going to do a real investigation. Boot out Comey, boot out Mueller, those phony balonies, they're going to do it. And we're going to find out if JFK Jr. was assassinated. I'll save you the trouble, folks. He was assassinated, okay? All right? I'm familiar with that area. I went to school in Connecticut. I know that whole area, the whole sound, and yes, there is some issues with it, okay? Visibility being one of them, all right? But the thing was, and here's what they don't tell you, Mr. Kennedy's flight instructor and his wife and sister-in-law were in that plane together. There weren't 3 people in that plane. There were 4 people in that plane. Funny thing was, the flight instructor's body and the seat he was sitting in have never been found. All right? Never been found. And the plane went down within a couple hundred yards of his mother's house. on Martha's Vineyard, on a straight line to it. He had flown that route many, many times, and it was physically impossible for that plane that was on final approach, 4 minutes away from the Martha's Vineyard runway.
In Edgartown.
It was impossible for that plane to dive, unless it had to have been forced down into the waters, okay, of Long Island Sound, okay, off Martha's Vineyard. And yes, and funny thing, again, the instructor who knew that route was certifying that the route was solid for secure reasons, okay, simply was never found. His body has never been found, okay. Within, what was it, an hour, the wreckage of the plane was washing ashore at the base of the cliff of their mother's home, okay. And we won't even talk about what happened to the Coast Guard search. We won't even talk about what happened with the Pentagon commandeering the entire search process. The entire search process. That's why it took almost 2 days to locate the wreck, all right? With eyewitnesses to the wreck, seeing it happen, okay? It still took the U.S. government 2 days to locate it, okay? I think we'll add that to the growing list of people murdered, people assassinated.
Absolutely.
Okay, that the powers that be don't like. Right, Mr. Bush? Yes, Mr. Bush, both of you sociopathic convicts, okay, murdering bastards, okay, can add that to your list, okay? Yes, I think that's time too. And I agree with you, Luca, that whole thing that's happening in the Gulf, funny thing, all right? That, yes, of all the evidence points to, without having any investigative body available to examine what is going on in the Gulf right now, funny thing, that timing. There are no coincidences in intelligence work, right, Luca?
No, if it was,
I think your listeners believe me now.
If it happens that way, you can damn well believe that it was planned that way.
You've got it. So, and for all your listeners watching, yes, I was so inspired by your hairline, Luca, that I did the same thing. I just, you and Roger, okay, I just couldn't, I just had to, okay, all right. I feel like a new man, okay.
Well, you're not getting this. You're not getting this from me. Sorry.
Okay.
I may have a hairline, but I'm never going to get close to scissors ever in my life again.
Now, what I'd like to see, by the way, from all of this, we're making some very salient points, okay? And in my time being in intelligence work, what I said mattered because people died if I said the wrong thing, all right? So what I want to hear from all our listeners, okay, I want to see some write-in questions, okay? I want to hear some chat room stuff, okay? I want to have real questions. I don't want to hear any more NSA trolls or CIA trolls. Okay, those ass bites are that are paid with government money, paid by the U.S. citizens. Okay, don't have any say in this. They don't have any say, and I can smell one a mile away. All right, but I want all the listeners, okay, because we've got a bunch of them. Okay, to start giving some lucid, cogent answers and questions. All right. So I know that this information is getting out there and is having some effect. I think it's important that we test the validity of this show, our show, and we test it by the unlimited intelligence of our listener base. All right.
Okay. Well, let me add to that because first of all, have you ever seen a cloud with a 90-degree angle? A 90-degree angle. Outer angle like that. It was a solid 90-degree angle to one of the clouds. And the other thing that I wanted to say was that the reason why I wanted to bring this story up with geoengineering was because I know how those storms dissipate. I know how they climb. I know how they want to, blow out and churn and when I saw the video that I can't show you because it is from geoengineeringwatch.org, and I was not able to get a hold of him to ask him to borrow it. But if you go on his website, geoengineeringwatch.org, you can see it. You can see the cloud formation. Okay, I'll do this. This is where it stops. You see the cloud formation going up and wanting to move north. That's all you keep saying. Clouds and clouds after cloud trying to move up north, and they stop. And there's interference from moving up north. And according to Dane Wigington, there were many different cities that were doing that. So they were basically steering it. Mm-hmm. And if you know anything about geoengineering, you can't argue that. And if you don't, like I do, very little, you got to start researching. And this is why we always tell people, choose your battles wisely, because no one knows everything about everything. So what we're trying to do is give you the most important parts of today in an update format so that we can learn more about what's going on.
On a closing note, we must be getting close to our time.
We're past it.
But I would like to ask our listeners for their response on something called the Great Conveyor. Okay?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. I want to see if our listeners are tracking with what we're saying. Look up the path of the Great Conveyor, all right? Mm-hmm. And where it goes in the Gulf and what happens in the Gulf, okay? Like I said, it's so important for us to have educated, sharp, inquisitive listeners that are always wondering, yes, are we onto something? Are we just blowing smoke or whistling Dixie? Okay? Right. So, it's important that every one of our listeners questions what we say and they look it up. It's so important now.
Don't believe us, right? Do your research.
Hey, as everyone heard the government say, hey, I'm crazy, mad as a hatter. All right. So don't believe me. Remember, the government won't lie to you, folks. They won't lie to you. Okay. Yeah. And the bigger thing is they won't lie to you in a situation where they could be held accountable, held responsible, or not make money for the plutocrats and oligarchs, okay, that control them, all right? Remember that. The government loves you. Lie.
Ask a Native American how much the government loves you.
Yes, ask me. Hey, I know. Absolutely, I do know, okay? So, remember, the Scots and the Indians, Native Americans, are the very last that trust a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant government. Okay, neither one of my sets of ancestors, has anything to celebrate when it comes to trusting a government, and especially this government. All right. So anyway, is that it for us?
Absolutely. Thank you, Greg, for another beautiful show together. And we'll get this out as soon as we can. This is important.
Okay. I'm absolutely ready to go for that set of questions that I hope everybody sends in.
Me too. Right? And we can't thank them enough for watching this show as well. So
absolutely. I thank our listeners.
Until next time.
You. All right. For the illuminated. Okay. Not the illuminated. All right. There it is. Thank you, my friend. Okay. And thank you, listeners. All right.